You're listening to Beat Autoimmune and Thrive, the podcast all about reversing and preventing autoimmune conditions so you can live your most vibrant life as soon as possible. We talk about autoimmune root causes, actionable solutions, and inspirational healing stories. I'm Palmer Kippola, and I used to have MS. Today, I'm an author, a speaker, a functional medicine certified health coach, a pickleball player, and nature lover who's helped thousands of people reclaim their health and their best lives. Let's dive into this episode. Jodi Cohen is a best-selling author, award-winning journalist, nutritional therapy practitioner, and founder of Vibrant Blue Oils. She's combined her training in nutritional therapy and aromatherapy to create unique proprietary blends of organic and wildcrafted essential oils. She's helped thousands of clients heal from brain-related challenges, including anxiety, insomnia, and autoimmunity. And as with many root cause or functional health practitioners, Jodi discovered essential oils as a powerful self-care tool to help herself and her family overcome various health challenges. Her latest book is Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body: 5 Steps to Calm Anxiety, Sleep Better, Reduce Inflammation, and Regain Control of Your Health. That sounds like such a great and spot-on title for our conversation today, Jodi. And I'm super excited to dive into essential oils with Jodi because while I've been a user and fan of essential oils for a very long time, understanding their therapeutic power is pretty new to me. So today we're going to dive into specific uses that are applicable to people who are seeking healing from autoimmune disorders. And that means we're going to cover stress and anxiety, sleep, pain and inflammation, fatigue and brain fog, digestion and detox, immune function, and even nerve repair. So Jodi, wow, we've got a lot to cover. Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, it's great to be here and thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm absolutely delighted. And I have to tell you, I am so impressed with your book, your research, and your passion for essential oils. And I always love starting at the beginning. So my understanding is that you didn't start out in health and wellness like me. You've got a background in journalism, advertising, and marketing, maybe. So can you take us back to the beginning of your own healing journey and experience with essential oils?
Yeah, and it's funny, actually. So I studied journalism and poli-sci and wound up getting a job out of college in the U.S. Senate with Ted Kennedy, which, you don't turn that one down. And it was before the internet, and I was helping to create hearings and to write speaker testimony. And so they would, every week I'd get a stack of research documents on my desk, and I had to figure out how to read them very quickly, and I had the benefit of these brilliant minds that really helped me. They showed me how they did things. And so right out of the gate, baptism by fire, I was in, up to my elbows, actually sometimes above my head in research. And I got really good at that. And then at some point, I realized that politics was more about making the other guy look bad than really helping the world. And once I had that realization, I couldn't stay. And so I went and was a journalist for a while and won a couple awards, went and got an MBA and was doing marketing. And then had children. And my first child was super easy. And I just assumed that it must be me. I must be just this great mom. So I had another one 22 months later. And, man plans, God laughs. He was not as easy. He had no impulse control and was really like that kid that did those things. And we would try every parenting technique. Our big thing was look at my nose. And he couldn't focus. He couldn't look at my nose. We were at a birthday party and my son, Max, was actually being incredibly well behaved that day. And my friend, Alex, was like, oh, wow, look at you. Max is so dialed in. You got this. And I was like, yes, good parent day. And then another mom went and passed out snacks. I think it was a Ritz cracker. Max ate the Ritz cracker, Jekyll Hyde, and we were at the zoo, literally started sprinting towards the jaguars. And I'm like, short-lived, ran after him, grabbed him, brought him back. And Alex was like, okay, I have to say, I've never noticed him Jekyll Hyde after eating something. My brother was on Ritalin his whole life, and it turned out he was just allergic to weird foods. You should take him to a nutritionist. And I thought, that's easy. I can totally do that. And so I brought him to a nutritionist who pointed out that he was allergic to soy, corn, and dairy. We changed his diet, and the next day he could look at our nose. And I was so awestruck because he was 3 at this point. I had spent 3 years taking every parenting class I could take, and parents are a little critical and judgmental. And, so much of my identity was kind of wrapped up in being a mom. I felt really bad about myself. It's like, I can't believe, all of this could have been avoided if I had known how food impacts behavior. And so I was intrigued. I went back and got a degree in nutritional therapy, read everything I could find, was trying to help other moms. I had so much compassion for how painful it is to have, that kid that does those things. And because I was in Seattle and kids are squirmy, I learned this technique called muscle testing that was really easy for helping to prioritize what remedy would be helpful. And so I was doing that when my life took another turn. My husband at the time was bipolar, and it became clear that he was more depressed than I could support. And so we moved him into a residential treatment facility. And the minute I knew he was safe and he wasn't going to die on my watch, it was like, what would you do if you were Atlas and you were carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders? Shrug. I could finally shrug, but my system was just so exhausted that once I laid down, I really couldn't get back up. And the kids were 5 and 7, and I had a full-time job. I was class parent. I had all these responsibilities, but literally all I could do, I would wake up with them, make them breakfast, pack their lunch, take them to school, come back home, crawl into bed, and set the alarm for pickup. And that was about my level of functioning. And I knew enough to know, like, this is adrenal fatigue. I should be supporting my adrenals. I was trying really hard. And it was kind of like I was treading water. I wasn't sinking more, but I really wasn't where I needed to be. And so I was super open to, like, I'll try anything. Like, I'm stuck and I'll take help. And luckily for me, a friend of mine was super into oils, came over with a big box and said, these are going to help you. And here's why. You have been so chronically stressed for so long. And we know that cortisol, the stress hormone, over time can kind of cause systemic inflammation. So if you're attempting to assimilate your remedies through your digestive tract, and your digestive tract is inflamed, and so things aren't actually getting absorbed and assimilated, you're not actually getting, the healing remedies into your system. And she pointed out oils are different. You can smell them. They go straight through the nose. The nose is the elevator to the brain. You can topically apply them. We know from hormonal creams and nicotine patches, things get in through your skin. These might help. And I thought, all right, bring it on. I'll try anything. So I muscle tested the box and kept getting the same 5 oils for the adrenals, which was confusing at first because normally I get like 1 remedy or possibly 2. And then it occurred to me, oh, wait a minute, they're liquid. I could combine them like a mixed drink. And so I tested each remedy and made up my own little adrenal cocktail, put it over my adrenals on my low back, and felt like myself. It was like, returning to factory settings. I was like, okay, this is me. And I got more done that day than I had in the previous 2 weeks. And then I just kept, every time I bumped into a challenge, I would be exhausted during the day and then wired and tired and insomniac at night. So I made something up to help with sleep. I knew from working in nutritional therapy, like, this point above the ears is really good for assimilating and supporting the pineal gland, which is in charge of releasing the sleep hormone melatonin. So I just kept inventing things that kept working. And once I started to feel better, I was intrigued and I thought, this is crazy. Like, someone must be doing this. And when I went to research, I realized no one was really, there were a lot of, great companies selling great products that were kind of like mix it yourself and do it yourself, but no one was really selling pre-made formulas designed to balance organ systems and regions of the brain. And when I looked at how they were instructing people to do it themselves, they made it really complicated. And I thought, gosh, I would have felt unqualified to do this. I never would have done it if it had not been necessity. So that's really how I got started.
What an amazing story, Jodi. I mean, I just love it so much. Necessity is the mother of invention. You were open-minded. You had a friend. You were open to that help. And then you just tried things. I mean, the healing path is really, in my view, all around being open, experimenting, and then sticking with something that works for a long enough period of time. We tend to, I've been doing my thing for a long time now, and I tend to see people trying things for a month and then they stop and they think, okay, my gut is healed now. Or, but just having that fortitude and that commitment to yourself and well-being, that you want to get better, it's possible to get back into balance. That is amazing. So thank you for sharing that story. I love it. And maybe one thing that you can help, another place that I like to start is definitions. What makes oils essential? Why are they called essential oils?
Yeah, so they fulfill essential functions in the plant. But for anyone who is listening who doesn't really know what oils are, if you go into a lavender field and you pick the lavender, and then you put the lavender in a vat of boiling water and you boil it, the steam will rise and it will separate. Oil and water don't mix. So one side will be the oil and one side will be the hydrocell, the water. And that oil is like the very concentrated essence of plants. Like it takes, dried herbs. One drop of oil is kind of like, 50 cups of peppermint tea. So it's very, very concentrated. And oils perform a variety of functions in the plants. They hydrate the plants. They help, depending on kind of what the function of the plant is, they do different things. Like flowers do slightly different things than like deep-rooted plants, and we can get into that. But they basically have medicinal properties. And what people may or may not realize is that the majority of our pharmaceutical drugs are derived from plants. White willow bark is now aspirin. Valerian root is Valium. Plants are really the root of the pharmaceutical drugs because they have medicinal properties. So when you take the concentrated essence of plants, they have medicinal properties.
Beautiful explanation. And these are ancient remedies. So these have been used for millennia. This is not something new. This is not an internet thing. I think what makes you such an amazing inventor and creator is that you have blended these oils and not just used single oils. And we find in my functional medicine, naturopathic medicine practice that using combinations of oils is way more powerful and synergistic than any one particular herb. And that's in particular if people are looking to overcome Lyme disease, if you are trying to get past mold. I mean, these are really, really entrenched and oftentimes intractable conditions that require strong dosage, but often blends of these herbs. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between blends versus single herb uses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people, when they think of oils, like lavender, peppermint, frankincense, those are kind of lemon, the common ones. And they're, it's kind of like when you think of food, like you can eat an apple and have it just be an apple, and it's amazing. There's nothing wrong with using single oils. I think they're great. I add lavender to the bath. I sometimes, peppermint, if it's really hot out, you can put it on the back of your neck and it cools you down. There are all these single oil uses, but when you combine them, it's a different process. It's kind of like when you throw an apple in the salad, it tastes different and it brings out other quantities. And what's fascinating is someone who's, knee deep in the research, all of the research that's been done on oils is really oils in combination because, it enhances that synergy. It's like a good marriage. Or think of, a symphony. You have the individual instrument, which is beautiful, but when you combine it and you get the harmonies, and it's just so much fuller and more robust, and you can combine it to do different things, or think of a single color. Like purple is my favorite color. I love purple, but all of the artwork in my house has a variety of colors because then it synergizes and it brings out more aspects of it. So that's what we're really trying to do, is kind of return the body to harmony and balance. And by doing that, we do it with a combination of oils to kind of help put the body back in balance.
I love that. And so speaking of balance, one thing that I love about the idea of essential oils, I use the expression little hinges swing big doors.
Yeah.
So that you can use these oils. And I've got yours right here, my parasympathetic blend. I've got my organic frankincense, and This is one, the organic rosemary I use in my nasal spray for yeast and fungus
Yeah.
overgrowth. These are fantastic, fantastic tools. They are an outstanding complement to anybody's healing regime. I mean, this is not an either or proposition. This is additive. This is something that anybody can do that adds, accelerates, or how would you describe it? That just boosts your capabilities or your healing power in
Yeah.
addition to what you're already doing. So you're making changes to your diet, you're trying to reduce stress, and this is maybe a turbocharge to that process. Is that a good way of thinking about it?
Yeah. I mean, I describe it as it's kind of like, as opposed to biking uphill against the wind and the rain, it's like cruising downhill in the sunshine. It just makes it easier. And to your point, if you're celiac and you're continuing to eat pizza, it's not going to help you as much. It's just one more thing, like when people say to me, oh, I think I might want to lose weight. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe like, eating fewer calories or exercising. And I'm like, why don't you do both?
I love it. I love it. I love it. So as much as I hate to be reductionistic and break things down into pieces, because everything is connected, and I think people will really understand that once we go through this, I'd like to go through some of the biggest things that I see time and time again with people who are trying to heal from autoimmune conditions, and stress and anxiety really is at the top of the heap. And I think this is a big, huge opportunity for people from a healing perspective. Is what can we do from an oils perspective to bring down our stress levels and that always on hypercortisol response? And anxiety may be slightly different than that, but I'd love your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, what most people don't realize, I think they think it's like a personality deficit or something, like I have anxiety, I have panic attacks. They don't realize it's a natural physiological function. We are designed to stay alive. Our autonomic nervous system, which controls our automatic functions, like our heart rate, our breathing, our digestion, our immune function, it really has two gears. The high alert, oh my gosh, I might die, there's a tiger chasing me, or my husband's mad at me, or I might lose my job. All of those potential threats to our survival put us in what's known as the sympathetic branch of our nervous system, the fight or flight branch, the branch where survival is prioritized. And so blood flow is routed to the arms and the legs so we can flee or fight back and away from digestion and detoxification. Our focus changes. Like if you've ever had that moment where you thought your back was against the wall and, you have to make a decision and you're flooded and floored and you can't even think clearly. That's because when there's danger, your focus changes. You can't take in, the whole universe. You have to just focus on that immediate survival, and then the moment passes and you calm down and you think back and you're like, gosh, that's really interesting. I had all these options, but in that moment, I really couldn't see them. And so what is normally supposed to happen, there's a great book, Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it basically talks about in the wild, the lion chases the zebra outruns it and, then shakes to recalibrate. And what it's doing when it shakes is it's shifting out of that sympathetic fight or flight state into the return to safety, the parasympathetic rest and digest. It's calming its nervous system and recalibrating so it turns back on healing, detoxification. What happens to us as humans is we don't ever get out of that survival gear. We are walking around thinking the sky is going to fall, be it watching the news and seeing like whatever might be happening in the world or in your neighborhood, or having a conflict with somebody we love, or just, having past trauma and repeating those thoughts. All of that keep us stuck in that fight or flight sympathetic branch of the nervous system. And you cannot heal when you're in fight or flight. You really need to be in parasympathetic rest and digest. And here's the cool thing where oils can play a really pivotal role. The gear shift between sympathetic fight or flight and parasympathetic rest and digest and healing is the longest nerve in your body that most people have never heard of. It's your vagus nerve, cranial nerve number 10. It is literally the gut-brain connection. It starts at the base of the skull, winds, splits, and is most accessible, if you feel with me, right behind your earlobe on your mastoid bone. That's an oil application point that we'll come back to. That is where your vagus nerve is the most accessible to the surface and also the thickest. From there, it winds through your throat, your heart, your lungs, every organ of digestion and detoxification. All of the, like when you do yoga, you are, the twists and turns on the breathing, you're activating your vagus nerve. This is why you always feel better in Shavasana than you do at the beginning of class. Most things that you're doing that make you feel great, you're activating your vagus nerve. And so what's interesting is it's easier. We think of like relaxing, like I originally thought it would be relaxing oils like lavender and chamomile. No, there's some interesting research. This New York neuroscientist named Kevin Tracy was surgically implanting a pacemaker-like device right there and using it to stimulate the vagus nerve. And the FDA has approved this for epilepsy, migraines, depressions. It's stimulating and activating that nerve. And in lieu of getting an invasive surgery, you can use stimulatory oils. Stimulatory oils are ones like clove, oregano, thyme, peppermint. You put it on your arm and you might see like a red dot or it might feel warm. That is stimulatory. If that happens, oil and water don't mix. You're not going to put water on it. You're going to put any cooking oil and just dilute it. But we've combined clove, which has these amazing medicinal properties, but has like medium-sized molecules. Blending oils is a slight bit of chemistry, with lime, which has very small molecules and also like fabulous properties. And you can combine it and put it right on that vagus nerve point. And what that does is it gets through the skin, acts as a natural stimulant, and basically think of it as a gear shift. When the train changes lanes, you're in this survival, stressed, panic state. You gear shift your own physiology to be in this relaxed state, and suddenly you feel better. The danger has passed. You're able to assess the terrain. Blood is routed back to your organs of digestion, your organs of detoxification, your immune system. Everything that helps you heal, especially from autoimmunity, comes back online. So your body functions optimally to kind of, you're in the right gear. Or even think of driving a car, right? If you're trying to drive and you're stuck in neutral, you're not going anywhere. You can't be in reverse to go forward. You have to be in drive. So it's just making sure that your physiology is in alignment to allow you to heal.
Yeah. Fascinating. And I love this kind of counterintuitive perspective that you have, that when we think that healing only happens in the relaxation response, which is true, to stimulate the vagus nerve does sound counterintuitive, because you think that I just need to calm it down. So is this where my parasympathetic oil, your parasympathetic oil, is going to come in, and I just take one drop right here?
Yes. And what's fascinating is it becomes slightly Pavlovian. Like most people like the smell. And so over time, your body gets used to recognizing, when I smell this, I relax. So you can literally just smell it and know, oh yeah, it just sends that kind of calming message through your system.
Well, it's interesting. And I wasn't going to get into this now, but I will, since I'm holding it in my hand. I have been talking about this with my community, and I actually have some clients that do better using this if they wake up in the middle of the night or they have trouble falling asleep. They just put a little of this on. And one other woman said, no, don't do that. It'll keep you awake because it's stimulating. So different people may have different responses, but I'm curious as to, like, when would you reach for something like this, in addition to taking your deep breaths and calming yourself down, those deep belly breaths? Would this also be the time to just put one drop on your mastoid bone?
Yes. I mean, when people are starting, I tell them they have two options. Like, they can either leave it by their toothbrush, and just there's a lot of research that if you integrate a new habit with an existing habit, it's more likely to stick. And so just when they're brushing their teeth, remember to use it. And what tends to happen is they realize, like, oh, I like the way I feel. And then it's easier to remember because they already see the benefit. The other option is just to do it before meals. Like, especially if you're, working from home during the day, you can leave it somewhere where you'll remember, because that turns on digestive flow. In terms of before bed, it's fascinating to me because it's a little bit to me like coffee. Like, some people can drink coffee at 10 at night and have no problem falling asleep. Other people, if they have any caffeine after 4, they're like up for hours. So it can be stimulatory or it can be relaxing. It really depends on you. So what I tell people is, if that's a question mark, try it at 4 and see how you feel and see how you sleep. And if you're fine, you can try that, but it's impossible for me to predict. Everyone's a little different with that.
Yeah. Beautiful. And this again is self-experimentation. That's ideal. And now that you touched on sleep, this is such a foundational element for people for healing and for optimal health. We all need better, more restorative sleep. So I know you touch on different people and different types of sleep issues. And here's what I see. There's people who have an inability to fall asleep is maybe one category. I don't see that as much, but people who have trouble staying asleep, that's maybe the biggest category of people that I see in terms of the autoimmune population I serve. You've got the wired and tired at night who, by all accounts should be exhausted, but they can't calm themselves down. And then you've got the slow starter in the morning, even after 9 hours of sleep, they just can't get out of bed. So those are kind of my 4 categories that I see. And maybe you can touch on what can we do for each one of those.
Yeah. So the inability to fall asleep and the slow starter waking up has to do with the cortisol rhythm. So cortisol is kind of your energy hormone, and you can take a 24-hour saliva test that it will measure your cortisol throughout the day. So ideally, cortisol is low in the evening because you want to have low energy and be able to fall asleep, and high in the morning. So you have high energy and you can wake up. Cortisol works in tandem with the sleep hormone melatonin. And ideally, think of it like a teeter-totter, right? If cortisol is high, if your energy is high, your ability to fall asleep, you don't want to be falling asleep if the tiger is chasing you. Similarly, you want cortisol to be low so that melatonin can be high because they kind of offset each other. So we have a blend called circadian rhythm. Melatonin is released by the pineal gland. So we put it on that point, like right above the ear, on the skin, top of the head, back of the head. The pineal gland is between the eyes, right in the middle of the brain. And so what we're trying to do is kind of surround it to activate the pineal gland to release melatonin. I do not advise putting oil on your face, especially before bed. If you're a topsy-turvy sleeper, we don't want the oil getting in your eyes, but that helps people falling asleep and then also helps with morning energy. You also mentioned night waking, which is also what I find with autoimmunity. There are 2 kinds. There's you might get up at 1 a.m. and be wide awake. That is a blood sugar wake up, nocturnal hypoglycemia. And what happens is the energy dips a little low, the adrenals release sugar into the blood system, and then you're, adrenalized, no shock that you're wide awake. And you need the pancreas to then release insulin to carry the sugar back into the cells so that you can then fall back to sleep. So we have a pancreas blend that you can either apply over your pancreas, left side of your body, under your rib cage, under your boob, your breast, or you can just smell it. Sometimes I tell people to put a little drop on a cotton ball and put it in the pillowcase, and that helps. The more common autoimmunity wake up that I see is the 3 a.m. wake up. And that is often, in Chinese medicine, there's kind of every organ has a different time. Liver gallbladder time is 3 a.m. And so often what's happening with autoimmunity is that the toxic overload is higher or the liver capability is lower. And so you're moving all these toxins and it's a lot of work, and suddenly it kind of wakes you up. And so maybe you get up, you use the restroom, and you fall back asleep. What I found helps is anything that you can do to support your liver and your gallbladder, either before you go to bed or when you wake up in the middle of the night. And that includes taking binders before bed, castor oil over the liver. We have 2 liver blends, one that's kind of for emotion and anger, helps a lot if you're having that grumpy time of the month. And then regular liver for the vitality of the liver, and then a gallbladder blend. And so just putting that over the liver and the gallbladder, or smelling it if you wake up around that 3 a.m. time, seem to help people fall back asleep more easily.
I love that. I love having these solutions. I mean, people know if you're a 1 a.m. waker, well, that's, clearly something maybe going on with your blood sugar system. So really to pay attention to that. These are clues. And I love that you're giving us clues so that people can really be their own health detectives. I mean, that's what life ultimately is. Like really paying attention to what's going on with you, trying things, seeing if they work, and don't give up. Just because you try something and it doesn't work the first time, like with parasympathetic, if it keeps you up at night, then try something different. I love that so much, Jodi. Gut healing is at the center of healing from an autoimmune condition. And you've talked about how essential oils like the parasympathetic blend can help with digestion because it helps us to rest and digest. Are there oils that can help with microbial balance and even gut lining repair?
Yes, and before we move on from parasympathetic, so the parasympathetic is kind of critical to, it is the gut-brain connection, and the microbes in the gut are going up through the vagus nerve and kind of signaling the brain. And also it's top up and bottom down. And so activating the parasympathetic nervous system helps to kind of recalibrate the microbiome in the gut, which is really instrumental. And also it is the digestive cascade, like the moving sidewalk that is our digestive system, especially through the small and large intestine. If the tiger might eat you, it doesn't really matter if you can assimilate your nutrients and have a bowel movement. So that gets shut down. So if you're suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, could things sit too long, constipation, any of those kind of intestinal ailments, activating your vagus nerve and stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system can be very helpful. In addition to that, we do have a gut repair kit, which includes parasympathetic, intestinal mucosa, which I'll talk about, and anti-inflammatory. And what we do with intestinal mucosa and anti-inflammatory is tell people to massage it around the belly button in a clockwise motion. The anti-inflammatory blend just kind of calms inflammation from the outside in. And then intestinal mucosa is really interesting. It's if you were going to like wallpaper the wall, you'd have to put the paste on first so that the wallpaper sticks. So intestinal mucosa is kind of what keeps all of those good nutrients, good probiotics, good flavonoids. It just helps to make sure that the lining stays healthy and clear so that the good things stay and the bad things don't really stick. It helps with kind of the gut flora balance. And so topically applying that can really help to change and improve the balance of good microbes versus, pathogenic microbes in the gut.
I love it. So that's really a three-pronged strategy, if I understood you right, because you've got the parasympathetic one, which you could maybe put here. You mentioned, let's see if I get this right, the one that you put around your belly button in a clockwise fashion?
The anti-inflammatory and the intestinal mucosa.
You put both of them around your belly button.
Yeah, we're really trying to, think of it this way. It's kind of like the exercise and diet. We're really just trying to help you hit it from all sides. Like we're assuming that you're making good life choices. You're sleeping, you're moving, you're eliminating food that might be causing inflammation. You're adding in food that's known to be healing, bone broth and those kinds of things. So everything else that we can throw in to just help you heal faster.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love it. I love it. So these are really practical solutions that people can do. So let's jump into, unless you have something else to say about that, I'd really like to get into infections and in particular oral health, because I've been a huge fan of oil pulling for years. And I learned from my biological dentist that people with the best gums that he sees and best oral health use organic sesame oil for oil pulling. And I've also heard you talking about adding essential oils to the carrier to do oil pulling in your mouth. And I'm curious what you recommend.
Yeah, I tried sesame oil. That's an acquired taste. For some people, it's probably delicious. Our friend and colleague, Katie Wells from Wellness Mama, has a recipe where she basically uses, I think it's like a cup of coconut oil and then 20 drops of peppermint and puts it in those little candy molds.
Right.
And
silicone.
Yeah. And what's nice about that is it just makes it easier. You can just pop a little candy and it tastes like a peppermint patty and swish it around for 15 or 20 minutes. I have not looked at the benefit of sesame versus coconut oil, but I will say that I do not have any cavities, but my gums at one point were a bit of a crime scene. When I'd go to the dentist, the blood everywhere. And since oil pulling, it has made a huge difference in my gums and my life. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it speaks so much to the connection between our oral health and the rest of our health. So it's huge. And if you guys have not experimented with oil pulling, highly recommend it. And to make it tasty in the sense of just adding, some peppermint drops to the oil, and make sure you spit it in the garbage and not into the sink, because you do not want to clog your sink with that, but don't, and then rinse your mouth out for sure. What else in terms of oral health or other infections would you like to touch on?
Yeah, it's really interesting. If you think about kind of the pathway, like our mouth is really the gateway to our whole body. And so all of the pathogens can kind of wind up there, including, metals in the mouth from fillings, root canals. There's a lot that can kind of go sideways. And if you think about how the toxins leave the mouth, like what is the exit route? It goes along the trigeminal nerve and then down the neck. And so sometimes things can get a little congested around that vagus nerve point. And what can happen is like the neck is the big bottleneck. It's what connects the head to the body. So it allows the nutrients and the oxygen to get into the brain. And it's also what allows all the pathogens to drain out of the brain. And let's think about this for a minute. If there are toxins, especially metals, that are lingering here, nerves can be very receptive to toxins, especially metals. All of a sudden, they're carrying the metals into the brain. So we have these toxins in the brain. It turns on the brain's immune system. It causes inflammation in the brain, which presents as either, slower thinking, fatigue, or some of these ailments that we really don't want to get, like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So how do we make sure that the garbage leaves the brain and leaves the mouth? We really want to make sure that we're opening up that neck channel. And that's where topical application of oils are really, they're the gold standard. There's really nothing else that we can do. You ingest, maybe there are some lymph remedies. You ingest it, it goes into, through the whole digestive tract, into the bloodstream, then the heart pumps it out to the body. It takes a while. So there's been some research. There's an Italian researcher, Marco Ruggiero, who is actually taking sonogram pictures of the neck and finding the visual I'm going to give you is imagine that you're in the middle seat in the airline between two linebackers. Like, good luck. I've done that before. You can't even read a book because where your arm's going to go. So you are the lymph system and you're trying to drain and everything is like congested and pressing against each other. Topically, he was taking photos and seeing kind of the congested lymph, the inflamed vagus nerve. And then he was topically applying a mixture of oils similar to our lymph oil. And all of a sudden, the congestion, the fluid is flowing, which is what oils help the plants do. So the lymph is draining, the vascular system is enhanced, and the photo looks much healthier. So one of the things that you can do to ensure that, obviously you can use the oil pulling, the toxins are kind of in fat, so it acts like a bit of a magnet and pulls it out, and then you spit it out so it doesn't actually get absorbed. But the things that do get absorbed, you just want to make sure that they drain out of the system faster. And so you can take the lymph oil and, lymph really, the bottleneck for the lymph is the clavicles. So just making sure, putting a little bit on the clavicles for gentle light strokes, and then also along the side of the neck. The fascia is kind of the saran wrap that contains everything in the neck. So we have a fascia blend that you can also use to help open that up. So it's really just, for anyone who drives in traffic, like Seattle's constant traffic jam, we theoretically have 4 lanes on the freeway, but often there's construction. So one of them is open, and guess what happens? Nothing moves. And then you get past the point of construction and all 4 lanes open and it just flows easily. So if your neck is like that construction point, we just want to make sure that there's greater movement so that everything can drain down and leave the body.
I just love your metaphors, Jodi. These are so great. And I think as a journalist and a writer, you really have this ability to bring things into high resolution for people who are not watching this maybe, but just listening. And I love that. I interviewed Dr. Christine Schaffner on lymph and lymph flow, the importance. And since then, while I haven't been using an essential oil to do this, and I'm going to start adding one every morning when I meditate, when I sit down, I do this self-massage of my neck. It's really gently because I'm aware that while we sleep, our brains are literally taking out the trash. That's when the lymphatic system is working. But that's the time, my understanding of with the biggest bottleneck is in the morning. You want to make sure that we get rid of those toxins that have been excreted or have been trying to be excreted overnight, right? So that's like the stacking habits thing, which I am a huge fan of. I'm going to start adding oils on top of what I'm naturally already doing because it just to me, that's why wouldn't you do that? Just start. And it's,
and for any of the listeners that suffer from any thyroid autoimmunity, like Hashimoto's, there's some hypotheses that like fluid backup, like imagine all the toxins are sitting here in the neck because they can't leave. What are they impacting?
Right. It just makes such good common sense. And I think, they're not necessarily common practice, but this is an opportunity to be proactive with your health, because oftentimes we don't think of our lymph system. Really, I mean, hardly ever when we talk about detox, we talk about the liver, the gallbladder. Are you pooping every day? But our lymph system.
And we don't talk about fascia.
No, we don't. So is there anything more that you want to say about lymph and fascia? Because this is not something that I think is so obvious to people. They don't feel, it's not like you're constipated, so you got a problem pooping. But how would somebody know that maybe they have a lymph problem? I mean, learning from Dr. Schaffner, when she talked about brain fog and even pain can be signals that you've got some congestion in your lymph. Do you have any thoughts on how people might know?
Yeah, but there's a whole list of symptoms that you can look at. But, I went to a Cellcore conference one time and they were like, do you have parasites? Do you have a pulse? I think it's kind of like, we don't think like, oh, I'm not going to brush my teeth unless I have a cavity. It's just a healthy habit. Yeah. So like with lymph, our heart pumps our fluid. Lymph, we actually have to move, and it's the muscular movement. This is why doing yoga, there are all these things that you can do to move your lymph. So I think it's just a normal, healthy habit. Just start to move your body, take a walk, move, you can circle your arms. There are a bunch of great books that get into this. I like Gina Bria's Quench book. She just gives these small little micro movements. But, an easy way, I guess the easiest way is if you just touch your clavicles gently, kind of assess. And if it's tender, that's an issue. If you, I do yoga, and there are times of the month when laying on my stomach, it's like, I can tell it's that time of the month. If there's tenderness in, the clavicles, under, squeeze under your armpit, all of these areas are congestion points. And don't worry. This is a data point. If you notice this, you do not need to worry because everything is fixable, but just start to, unkink it. It's like if I have long hair, sometimes my hair gets tangled, I just start to work it from the bottom up and just gently untangle it. That's how you might think of your lymphatic system. We're just gently like removing kind of the blocks and the stagnation points and the congestion. And fascia, the way that works, like, I don't know about you guys, but when something stressful happens, I kind of brace for impact. It's like, oh God, when my kids were little and more prone to kind of meltdowns or temper tantrums, it'd be like, oh God, and so whatever happens, you've braced for impact, you've hunched over, you've protected yourself and your heart, and then the danger passes, but your body is still kind of congested in that point. So just gently allowing yourself to unlock. And that's what our fascia blend is designed to do. We just put it on it. It's a bit like a hug, it just lets you kind of gently release and relax. So you can be very proactive.
I love that. These are simple things that people can develop as daily habits. So how about, fatigue and brain fog? I know they're connected to so many things, so maybe it's too big a question, but can you touch on those areas?
Well, my approach to that is oxygen, right? What is the main food? Well, the brain uses fat, but it also uses oxygen. The brain is the biggest oxygen consumer in the body. Yeah. And what would impair the brain from getting the oxygen it needs? Oh, yes, the neck and the, vascular flow. So we have a blend called circulation, and it has peppermint and black pepper and all of these things that vasodilate. So again, you have a small little hole, which is where the blood flows. If you can enhance it and make it bigger, there's more space. It's expansion. It allows more blood flow to get to the brain. In fact, our circulation blend, I put just on the back of the head or the sides of the neck. And it's amazing whenever I have to write a paper or really focus. My daughter is a freshman in college. Her entire floor uses circulation when they have to study, concentrate. It just improves blood flow and therefore improves energy. It improves focus. It improves all things related to kind of mental capacity and optimization, performance performance optimization.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it. Thank you. And so I have a few more quick ones to ask about. And some of these are big too, but some people are dealing with a lot of pain, aches and pains and joint problems. And,
Yeah.
we always try to address the root causes. And we find often that, again, we come back to chronic Lyme, we come back to other root causes that are infections or toxicants. So do you have specific things that can help with pain that you recommend?
It's funny. So we have kind of 4 sub brands. We have body balance, brain balance, emotion balance, and then symptom support. And our symptom support, we have a nerve repair blend that's amazing for pain. My daughter is an athlete. She would come home all banged up, and I every night I'm like, let's nerve repair. I'm also a huge fan, honestly, of Epsom salt baths. I think they're amazing, and I put oil in the bath. But yes,
I love that. And so a lot of people with MS and other brain-based neurological disorders, and we've got all kinds of myalgias and different nerve issues. And I think a lot of people don't believe that nerves can be repaired. And there's such exciting science that shows that they can be repaired, but it's going to take some focus. Having this nerve repair blend, what's inside that can help people really address their nerves that need this loving care?
Helichrysum is the most powerful. And we also sell helichrysum directly on the site. That's really kind of an amazing healing from the inside out kind of remedy. It's expensive, so that's why we put it in the nerve repair blend. But, and it depends on why the nerve is damaged. Like I never, people that say like, oh, this cures everything. I don't really ascribe to that. I think that you can heal yourself, and it's a little bit like chipping away at the iceberg. But, and this can be really beneficial. We have several blogs about it. But, again, if the reason that you're inflamed is because you're sensitive to gluten and dairy and you're not changing your diet, it's not going to help that much.
That's right. That's right. I love it. And we're not talking about this being a panacea. We're talking about this being additive to, we're talking about this being a way to just enhance or amplify the good lifestyle practices that you're already doing. And for so many people, they feel like they're trying everything and they're still at a plateau, or they still feel like they're getting stuck. And I would just invite people to try, give it a try. And Jodi, I love the fact that you're offering my listeners a 10% discount. And I want to mention that now because I don't want people to miss out on that. So when you go to Jodi's site, which is vibrantblueoils.com, use the coupon code welcome10, that's welcome 10. And she has been generous enough to offer us a 10% discount on these oils to try.
$10 off.
$10.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it works out well, depending on how many buy, it works out as more than a 10% discount.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. And thanks for correcting my understanding on that. And so let's just ask you the question. I love asking guests about your favorite self-care habits. And it doesn't have to be about essential oils. It might be. Maybe you could take us through what a day of self-care looks like for you. How do you incorporate these things into your own personal life?
Well, I exercise every morning. I'm a morning exerciser, and I get up and I use the parasympathetic to calm my nervous system. And then I use lymph and circulation before I either run, do Pilates, or do yoga. And I find it really enhances blood flow. It allows me to lunge deeper, kind of get a better workout, and also recover faster. I intermittent fast, so I don't eat until 10. I find that to be very helpful. And then throughout the day, I take a lot of movement breaks. I love all of Gina Bria's suggestions in Quench, just kind of moving the body to ensure that the lymph is moving and flowing.
Oh, those are fantastic ideas. And I wonder, is there anything that I haven't had an opportunity to ask you? You have a vast knowledge base of all of these things. And I want to make sure that you feel fully self-expressed when it comes to essential oils and helping people heal from autoimmune disorders.
The one thing that I guess I really want to empower people, I think when you have any kind of autoimmune condition or health challenge, you might feel a little bit disempowered. And I just want to remind people that, I love, I'm old enough that they used to play the Wizard of Oz, every year. And the theme to me was always, they thought that the power laid outside of themselves with the wizard, but it turned out it was within them all the time. And I think when you are able to, activate your vagus nerve and turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, it's really very empowering. It kind of alleviates anxiety, alleviates overwhelm. It allows you to feel like, I've got this, I can do this, this is hard, but this is tough, but so am I. I can do hard things and I can lean into this. So I just want to remind people that, you can do this, and there are tools that make it more accessible.
So beautiful. I love that. You are totally empowered. You can build this confidence. It's from the inside out, not looking for something from the outside in. Beautiful, Jodi. So where can people find you? And please tell us about a gift, maybe a free bonus chapter that you might be offering my audience.
Yes, they can find us at Vibrant Blue Oils. If they have any questions, you can email us at info@Vibrant Blue Oils, and we tend to get back to you within 48 hours. And then if you want more information about the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system, you can get our free bonus chapter at boostthebrainbook.com/gift. And it goes into far more detail, especially if you are, it's easier for me to assimilate information when I read it.
Yeah, beautiful. And your blog is fantastic. So I welcome everyone to check out Jodi's beautiful blog, her articles. It's clear that she's done so much research into this. And don't forget to use that coupon code WELCOME10 for $10 off any of the products that you might pick up at Jodi's website, vibrantblueoils.com. Jodi, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate you being on and can't wait to continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Take good care.
You too.
Bye. And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and if you feel inspired, please leave a quick review so other people can find it too. Now, if you want to beat autoimmune and thrive, make sure you sign up for my free video training at freeautoimmunetraining.com. That's freeautoimmunetraining.com, and watch the first video right away. Take good care. Bye for now.